It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Good morning, afternoon, or evening to my hive. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, psychotherapist, feminist life coach, and your resident queen bee of this hive. Today's episode is one I have been itching to talk about for a long time because it lives everywhere. On our tongues, in our thoughts, in our text messages, in our workplaces, and in the way we talk to ourselves when no one is listening. We are talking about language. More specifically, how language quietly and loudly shapes misogyny and the words and phrases we seriously need to retire already. Because words are not neutral. They never have been. Language doesn't just describe reality. It creates it, reinforces it, and passes it down like a family heirloom that none of us actually asked for. And when the language we use is soaked in sexism, it reinforces power structures that keep women small, silent, apologetic, and perpetually second-guessed. So today we're going deep. We are breaking down the psychology, the history, the everyday phrases that slip under the radar, and most importantly, what we can do instead. This isn't about perfection or language policing. This is about power, awareness, and choice. So, why does language matter? Well, this is where psychology meets feminism. So let's start with science for a hot second, because feminism and facts go hand in hand. Research in linguistics and psychology shows that language shapes perception through something called linguistic relativity. In plain terms, the words available to us influence how we think about people, behaviors, and even what feels possible. When women are consistently described using language that implies irrationality, weakness, excess emotion, or incompetence, those traits become unconsciously associated with womanhood itself, and we are at risk of becoming those exact stereotypes. This is not just theoretical. Studies in social psychology show that gendered language affects hiring decisions, performance evaluations, medical care, and even how seriously women are taken when reporting harm or pain. And here's the kicker. Research on implicit bias shows that even people who consciously support gender equality still absorb sexist language norms. So, if you've ever caught yourself using one of these words about yourself or someone else, this is not a moral failing. It is simply evidence of how deeply this stuff is embedded. And I'm telling you, this is still an area that I struggle with myself. I use some of these words on myself that we're about to discuss, and I have been working very hard to cut the crap. It's almost like some of these words are part of a bad habit that needs to be broken. Language is one of the earliest tools of social conditioning. It teaches girls who they're allowed to be, how much space they're allowed to take up, and how society believes it's allowed to treat them. And the good news? Anything learned can be unlearned. And before I go on, I haven't said this yet this season, but here's the reminder that this podcast is for women. I understand that language affects men also, but gentlemen, this is not your space. This is a space for women. So again, I just have to put it out there early to hopefully cut down on some of the hate that I tend to get as a feminist. Okay, so let's move on to the words and phrases that we need to retire like yesterday. And we're going to talk about some repeat offenders. These are the words that seem harmless on the surface, but carry generations of misogyny underneath. And they are words that are used every single freaking day. The first word, bossy. This is a word that I was labeled with from the time that I was a child, and I am so over it. When a man takes charge, he's a leader. When a woman does it, she's bossy. Now, psychologically, this word punishes girls and women for assertiveness, one of the exact traits associated with leadership success. Research shows that girls as young as elementary school begin suppressing leadership behaviors once they are labeled bossy. They learn early that confidence comes with consequences. And I can attest to this based on my own personal experience. And let's be clear. The problem isn't women being assertive. The problem is a culture that only likes authority when it comes from men. Grr, right? So instead of bossy, how about we say things like assertive, decisive, clear communicator, and confident leader? Those all more accurately describe women who are typically labeled as bossy. And the second word that we need to get rid of is emotional, when it's used in a condescending and dismissive way. So let's clear this up once and freaking for all. Emotions are human, not feminine. I will say it again because I'm so sick and tired of hearing women being described as emotional. Emotions are human, not freaking feminine. This word is often weaponized to invalidate women's legitimate reactions, especially anger, frustration, or grief. Neuroscience tells us that emotions are essential data. In fact, anger activates brain regions associated with motivation, problem solving, and boundary setting. Yet, women's anger is labeled emotional or unstable, while men's anger is framed as passion, conviction, or strength. That double standard teaches women to swallow feelings that are actually meant to protect them. I can acknowledge that I am an incredibly passionate person. When I'm riled up about something, good or bad, I am very expressive and very animated. And you've heard it if you've listened to some of my other episodes. I love storytelling. I love to invoke emotions in others. I don't see a damn thing wrong with that. But let me tell you, the amount of times that I have been labeled emotional is enough to send me over the freaking edge. When I worked as a dispatcher at a police department, one of the lieutenants used to call me Emotional Kelly. F all the way off, okay? So instead of labeling a woman as emotional, instead, we can say expressive, passionate, rightfully upset, and having a valid emotional response. Again, those are all accurate and far more appropriate ways of using to describe a woman instead of the word emotional. I'm telling you, the next time I hear a man label a woman emotional, I'm going to come unglued. And then they will use this next word. They will use word number 3 that needs to be retired. And that word is crazy. This one is deeply harmful, and I want to slow down here for a second. Calling women crazy has roots in the historical diagnosis of hysteria, a fake medical condition used to institutionalize, medicate, and control women who didn't conform. Women were labeled hysterical for everything from postpartum depression to sexual desire to having actual opinions. And today, the word is still used to discredit women, especially when they set boundaries, call out harm, express anger, or refuse compliance. And yes, this is yet another word that has been thrown at me. Shocking. Oh crap, you know what? As I'm recording this, I'm just realizing that all of the words that we need to retire are words that I've been called. Go figure. I bet a lot of my female listeners can say the same. Now, back to the word crazy. As a psychotherapist, let me say this clearly. Using mental health language as an insult fuels stigma. It discourages people from seeking help, and it silences women who already aren't believed. So cut the crap. And yes, I have said that I feel crazy before, and I am making a goal to be more mindful and stop using that word. And please, ladies, feel free to call me out when I slip. Because again, as somebody who tends to be very passionate and expressive, I like words. I like all the words. I like to toss out all the words when I'm storytelling. And when I am feeling very passionate about something, sometimes I am not mindful about the words that I use because again, being someone who's very expressive, I like to say things like, oh my gosh, I felt so crazy. No, girl, no, stop it. I did not feel crazy. I felt strong emotions. That is very, very different than crazy. So please, let's retire that word. Let's not use crazy to describe women anymore. Okay, leave that to the professionals. Instead of labeling either yourself or another woman crazy, we can say things like, I disagree, or I don't understand your perspective, or that behavior does not work for me, or even we see this differently. Instead of saying, girl, you are crazy, how about, again, so easily change to, you know what, Jen, I think we see this differently. Same intent, better words. All right, the next word / words is slut or whore. Unfortunately, sexual double standards are alive, thriving, and still doing damage. These words are tools of social control designed to police women's bodies, pleasure, and autonomy. Research consistently shows that slut-shaming increases shame, anxiety, depression, and disconnection from bodily autonomy, while doing absolutely nothing to promote health or safety. Now, men's sexuality is framed as normal or impressive, but women's sexuality is framed as dangerous or shameful. That's not morality, people. That is freaking misogyny. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard slut and whore being thrown around as simply just a casual insult towards women, not even referring to her sexual behaviors. So, what to say instead? Nothing. Absolutely damned nothing. We don't need a replacement. We need to stop policing women's sexuality altogether. Ooh, looky, my passion here could easily be labeled as emotional or crazy, right? No, I am pissed. And I get to be pissed. I get to be pissed when I hear somebody saying things like, oh, she slept her way to the top. Oh, she's such a slut. Oh, that whore. You know what? Screw that. I'm mad about it, and I get to be mad about it, and I'm not crazy or emotional, and I'm not a slut, even though I've been called one even before I ever even engaged in any kind of sexual practices. So, ladies, if you are calling other women sluts and whores, please stop. It's very harmful. And we'll talk a little bit more when we get to the action steps, right? Okay. Last one. Last phrase that we need to retire is, she's intimidating. Translation: she's powerful and someone feels threatened, right? This label often shows up when women are competent, confident, direct, and unwilling to shrink themselves to manage other people's comfort. That is not intimidation. That is uncontained presence. And there's nothing wrong with it. If someone feels intimidated by a woman existing fully in her power, that is information, but it's not an indictment of her. Again, I have been told that I am too intimidating to confront. WTF? Are you kidding me? Really? If you knew my heart, you would know that I am the easiest person in the world to talk to. So don't let your insecurities influence your description of me. Thank you very much. It is not my fault that you are lacking the confidence to have a conversation with me. Because again, once people confront me about something and we have a conversation, they recognize, oh, that wasn't so hard. Oh my gosh, she's not unreasonable. Just because I'm an assertive person does not mean I'm going to rip your head off if you tell me something that you don't like, right? Be an adult. Have a conversation. So instead of saying things like, she's intimidating, more accurate descriptions would be, she's strong. She commands the room. She's confident. She knows her worth. Hell yes. And another one I'll add, she's a force of nature. Yes, that is one of my favorites that I try to embody and carry with me into every important thing that I believe in and do. I want to be around confident women. I want to be around women that command the room. I feel a sense of connection and awe when I am in the presence of a badass woman who knows exactly what she wants, which is why I've devoted my life to helping women be just that. Ladies, come be intimidating with me. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's talk about that internalized misogyny that many of us deal with when we say these words about or to ourselves. And here's where it gets tender but transformative. Many of us don't just hear these ugly words from others. We use them on ourselves. Just like I disclosed earlier about my own struggles with this icky self-talk. Saying things like, I'm being dramatic. I'm too much. I don't want to sound bitchy. That is internalized misogyny doing exactly what it was designed to do. keeping women in check without anyone else having to step in. From a therapeutic lens, this becomes a form of self-abandonment. We invalidate our own instincts. We minimize our own needs and gaslight ourselves before anyone else gets the chance. Sound familiar to any of you ladies? Or is it just me? I know it's not just me. So the work isn't just correcting others. It is noticing when we turn these weapons inward and instead consciously choosing a different narrative. And now, my favorite part, actionable steps, how to actually change this behavior. Because awareness is powerful, but action is where change sticks. So let's make this practical. Action step number 1, pause and replace. When you hear a misogynistic word, either out loud or in your head, pause and ask, what behavior is actually being described here? Then replace the word with something accurate, specific, and neutral. Step number 2, call it in, not always out. You don't have to burn the room down every time. Or, as my husband likes to say, you don't always need to bring out the shotgun. I can't tell you how many times he says that to me. Because sometimes you just need the 22, or a BB gun. Or hell, for me, sometimes I just need a squirt gun. I don't always need to bring out the big guns and attack, right? Sometimes, ladies, disruption simply looks like curiosity. So instead of blasting someone for calling you crazy, instead, turn it around. This makes people uncomfortable. And say, what do you mean by that? Or, if you want to go a little bit bolder, would you say that about a man? Curiosity interrupts that unconscious bias without automatically triggering defensiveness, right? Because, so for example, when someone says I'm being emotional, my innate initial knee-jerk reaction is to be very defensive and be like, excuse me, right? And I get all puffed up. But I have worked very hard to reduce my defensiveness. If I'm feeling defensive on the inside, I pause for a minute and instead I get them at their own game. I turn it around. Like when somebody makes like very inappropriate jokes or whatever, I'll say things like, I'm sorry, could you explain to me how that's funny? I don't get it. Like, I don't get the joke. And that usually makes people incredibly uncomfortable, which is what my goal is. Because if you're going to use crappy language towards me, I want to make you uncomfortable. But in the advice, with the advice that my husband has given to me, I don't always need to knock them out to do it, right? I give them an opportunity to pause and reflect and think about what they're saying. All right, step number 3, audit your self-talk. So for 1 week, ladies, notice how you describe yourself when you're stressed, angry, or setting boundaries. Write it down. Then rewrite those statements as if you were describing a respected colleague, mentor, or friend. That contrast can be eye-opening. For me, I often challenge my negative self-talk by asking, would you say this to your patient? Eek, ouch, no. So then I need to stop saying it to myself. Step number 4, model new language. And if you're a parent, leader, coach, or mentor, this matters even more. Language modeling shapes what the next generation believes is possible for them. What you normalize becomes their baseline. This is how we affect change in the world. And finally, step number 5, one of my favorites. Ladies, stop apologizing for existing. If your sentence starts with, sorry, but I need you to pause. I need you to pause and ask yourself, am I actually sorry? Or am I just taking up space? Because chances are, you don't need the apology. All right, my fellow queens, in the spirit of my own personal and professional goals that I have for this year, I am going to be discontinuing the quote of the week, and instead, I'm changing it up to an affirmation of the week. Because one of the things that I'm trying to do this year is to be more intentional, to be more aligned. And I think affirmations can do that for me. And so I'm hoping that it'll do it for you. So this week's affirmation is, some women fear the fire. Some women simply become it. Now let me tell you why I love this so damn much. Fire has always been used as a metaphor to scare women. Too fiery, too loud, too intense, too angry. And historically, women were burned at the stake for simply being their true, authentic selves. But fire is also warmth, light, protection, transformation, and rebirth. Becoming the fire means refusing to dim yourself to make others comfortable. It means using your voice even when it's terrifying to do so. It means letting your anger inform you instead of silence you. My fellow queens, you are not too much. You are not dangerous. You are not wrong. You, my badasses, are ignition. And it's time to become the fire. All right, my ladies of the hive, here is your call to action. This week, choose one word that you're retiring, either from your vocabulary or your self-talk. Replace it intentionally. Say the new word out loud. Feel the difference in your body. Then, head over to the Hint Hive Facebook group and tell us, what word are you retiring and what are you replacing it with? And of course, as always, if this episode lit something up in you, share it with a woman who's been told she's too much or too loud or too emotional or too intense. She needs to hear this. And if you want to support the show, please leave a review, subscribe, or share the episode on your socials. Because feminist conversations spread faster when we amplify them together. Until next time, my fellow queen bees, watch your words, wield your power, and don't be afraid to become the fire. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.